Okay, so this is an initial setup for an NG firewall. Today we're just going to cover the basic network configuration just so that we can get the box connected to the local LAN and the internet itself. First thing we do is we make sure that there's a copy ng admin available. Here it is over on the left. Next, we have to make sure that we have access to the device off of port 1. In most scenarios, you're going to ask the customer to connect to a Wi-Fi or a hotspot. That's what this is here. And then we'll connect Ethernet, the Ethernet port to P1 of the device. Here, I've already added in 192.168.200.10 as myself with a /24 network. I left the default gateway, which would have been 192.168.200.200 empty, so that we don't have a gateway conflict with the Wi-Fi. That's pretty important. If you add in a gateway, you're probably going to start seeing your screen connect starting to flap, and for our purposes, we really don't want that. So let's go ahead and launch the ng-admin, and then this is the first screen you'll see. We'll input the IP address of the firewall, 192.168.200.200. The user is root, and then the password is ngf1r3wall. That's the default password on all the boxes. First thing that you should do is try to activate or download the licenses. On the dashboard, look for the license box, and then just click this little button, Query Online for new licenses. This box already has the licenses downloaded, so we really don't need to do that step. If you go to Control and then Licenses, you'll see the licenses available for the unit. If that doesn't work, then go to Configuration, and then Configuration Tree, and then Box Licenses. Download the licenses from BOSS, and then import the licenses manually via this option right here, import from zipped archive. So going back to the network, this is the configuration that we're going to install in the unit. Usually this is the hardest part in terms of network design or getting this information from the customer. But with this unit, I've decided to leave port 1 as the default MIP, so 192.168.200.200. Port 2, we're going to make the local LAN. Its IP range is going to be 10.20.20.0/24 as well. There's going to be a DMZ network on port 3, and finally the local LAN, or I'm sorry, the WAN on port 4. So with that, let's get started. So to do any sort of network configuration, we go to Configuration, Configuration Tree, and then Network. First thing we want to do is make sure that there's nothing configured. So we'll start off with the local LAN, and that's going to be off of ETH1, aka port 2. We lock the screen, go down to local, additional local IPs, name this LAN, and then I'm going to select the interface, ETH1, which is port 2. I'm going to give the IP address of 10.20.20.1 for the firewall. I'm going to make it pingable. Since this is an initial setup, I'm going to make it a management IP, just so once we activate everything. In my experience, it's best to have as many management IPs as possible when doing network changes on initial setup. So there was that. Now we're going to send changes, activate. We're going to go to Control, and if you notice now the box icon, there's a little warning signal. So to send the changes to the unit, we go to Network, Activate, and in this case I'll do a failsafe. That usually takes down the network for about 6 to 10 seconds. During initial setups, you're not on a live production network, so it really doesn't matter. But when working on other cases, make sure that you inform the customer that there might be a potential network outage. Okay, so The warning icon is now disappeared. There's a warning now in network, but let's go ahead and take a look here. So ETH1, we see that it has negotiated gigabit speed at full duplex, and this is the network range that was configured on the box. It's also in the routing table down here. So source IP, that's the firewall's IP, and the name, which is LAN. So next, we're going to move to the DMZ network, and it's pretty much the same thing. Go back to configuration tree network, lock the screen, and go down to additional local IPs, and we'll name this DMZ. I'll select ETH2, which is port 3, and then I will give it an IP address of 192.168.10.254. So if we refer down to our network diagram here, this is the configuration we want on the box. I will say that it's a 24-bit network. I will say that it will respond to ping. I will not make it a management IP. In this case, we do not want it a part of the trusted zone, so we want it part of the DMZ network. Essentially, that's going to exclude it from any pre-built rules within the firewall, and we'll have to make separate rules for it to have internet access and any communication with the local LAN. We'll repeat the process here after we send changes, activate, go back to control, box, activate, perform another failsafe, at which point it should show up in network. Okay, so it looks like the network's been configured. Let's go take a look at it. And here we have on ETH2 our new network, our new DMZ network. And if we look at the main routing table at the bottom in the second box, it's also there. So our next configuration is to give the box internet connectivity through the ISP gateway. The NG firewalls come with port 4 configured as a DHCP client out of the box. We want to set a static IP address. So what we're going to do is we're going to first have to remove the DHCP setting and then configure the box with this information. So to do that, we go back to configuration tree, network, and then DSL, DHCP. If you notice right here, it's marked as yes. We're going to lock the screen and then change that to no. Send changes. I'm going to activate, but I'm activating keep locks because I want to make additional changes within the network tab. So next we go to routing and IPv4 routing table, click the little plus sign. I'm going to name it WAN. And this page is configured differently. This wants a network address, which is what we have here. This 144.66.24.48 /29. That's the actual network address of the interface. We're going to take this down. If you notice, E3 is now available. So since it's not being used by the DHCP interface. Route metric is the next thing we need to input. I usually start off with 10. You can add in 100 or whatever the customer's preference is. Leave source address empty. Most folks will try to fill that in for some reason. This is going to be an untrusted zone because it's the public internet, and that's what the firewall is designed to protect against. Default gateway is going to be the ISP modems IP address, which is 144.66.24.49. In most cases, with static IPs, the ISP reserves the first IP address from the network range. The /29 gives you, I think, 6 usable, and one of those IP addresses go to the ISP, so there's actually only 5 usable for the firewall. So I'm going to send these changes over. Activate, activate. If you notice now there's a gateway address and a source space route associated with this this new interface. That was auto-generated by the system, and that's exactly what we need to get out to the internet. I'm gonna close this down. If you noticed, or if you remember, there was no IP address associated with this network range that was configured within routing. To do so, we have to go to server properties within the configuration tree and add that there. So let's go ahead and fill in all the server property IPs that we'll need for the box at this point. We'll lock the screen. This 127.0.0.9 is the loopback address. It's needed if you decide to use DHCP. I usually move it down to additional local IPs in case it's ever needed again. But standard configuration is first IP is the local LAN's IP address. Second IP is the WAN address. And 50. First IP and second IP are just connection objects pre-built into the firewall. Don't get too hung up on what they are, but we'll look at that later on. I'm gonna send changes now. I'm gonna activate, and then I'm gonna go to control box. I'm gonna activate the WAN network. I'm gonna do a failsafe. Okay. Now we go to network, and hopefully our route will come up. So there goes ETH3 or P4. If we take a look at the routing table, we see this quad 0 route, which pretty much means the internet or world. We see that our source IP is a .50 that was configured in server properties, and then we see the gateway address or the ISP modem set at the .49. And so theoretically now, if we log into SSH, everything should be up. First thing I like to do is do an if config, and you see ETH1, ETH2, ETH3, and ETH0, their corresponding MAC addresses. MTU is set at 1500, which is what we want. The IP address for each port, which lives on the firewall, and we're going to test connectivity now with IPing. So IPing allows you to designate the interface or IP that the ping goes out of. So in our case, we want to test connectivity off of the WAN interface, and then we're going to ping GoDNS, and there it is. So that's pretty much basic connectivity on the unit. The last thing to do would be to create a PAR file. So we'll go to configuration tree, and then create PAR. I usually just slap it on the desktop. This is the naming convention that I usually use. The model, this is a VF1000, the date, and then box.par. So click save, yes, and we have a working backup in case the box ever fails. And that's it.